Good morning and welcome to Rising. Happy new week, I guess. How was your weekend?
It was good. I had a bunch of friends in town. I'm finally getting situated in D.C. I feel like home now. It feels like home.
You're one of us.
I'm one of you guys. I'm trying to decide where to permanently live, but I'm like in a couple places. How was yours?
It was very good. I have lots of thoughts on where you can, should, and should not live. So
yes, I'm going to be using you as my map as I figure this out. So coming up on Rising, I'm going to talk about how Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene might be breaking away from the president and the MAGA movement more broadly.
Plus, President Trump has ordered federal troops to Portland, Oregon.
And some conservatives aren't too happy with the NFL over the artists they chose to perform at Super Bowl. But first, Robby, what's on your radar today?
Assata Shakur, a domestic terrorist and murderer who escaped from a U.S. prison in 1979 and lived in exile in Cuba ever since, has died at age 78. Shakur was a far-left communist radical associated with extremist groups like the Black Panthers and the Black Liberation Army in the 1960s and 1970s. This makes her a popular figure with many leftists, even though she is also a convicted cop killer. Indeed, she has been on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list since 2013. Of her numerous crimes, the most heinous, of course, was the murder of New Jersey State Trooper Werner Forster on May 2nd, 1973, during a traffic stop. She was convicted of the murder, but escaped from prison in 1979 with the help of left-wing groups, and she fled to Cuba, where the communist government welcomed her as a hero. But Cuban communists are not the only ones who revere Shakur as a hero, rather than a murderer. For decades, she's been a popular figure among leftist radicals. News headlines from mainstream and progressive outlets often recognize her as the godmother of Tupac Shakur, as if she were just another celebrity. The New York Times obituary describes her as a convicted revolutionary. That sounds pretty cool, like they went after her because she was too hip and edgy, too revolutionary. But no, she wasn't convicted of being a revolutionary. She was convicted of cold-blooded murder. She was also charged with numerous other crimes, by the way, including bank robbery, armed robbery, other murders. Those charges didn't stick for a variety of reasons. Cop killer did stick. She was convicted of it. I think that's not the sort of person we would want to hold up as a role model. Call me crazy. And yet leftists are using the occasion of her death to memorialize her as someone who spoke truth to power and fought for a more equitable world. Seriously, the remembrances are pouring in. The Democratic Socialists of America wrote on X, "Rest in power," and thanked Cuba, an authoritarian state that brutally jails dissenters, for their solidarity and loyalty, allowing Assata to live out her days in Havana. That's the kind of state the Democratic Socialists admire, one where cop killers are revered and actual forces for liberation are repressed. I'll just add a reminder here, by the way, that Zohran Mamdani, the would-be mayor of New York City, is a member of this group, the Democratic Socialists. But look, I expect the DSA Twitter account to say stupid things like this. They're a bunch of Marxist radicals. Fine. I was a little taken aback to see the Chicago Teachers Union also celebrating the life of a convicted cop killer, Assata Shakur. The X account for CTU wrote the following: "Rest in power, rest in peace, Assata Shakur. Today we honor the life and legacy of a revolutionary fighter, a fierce writer, a revealed elder of black liberation, and a leader of freedom, whose spirit continues to live in our struggle. Assata refused to be silenced. She taught us that it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It's our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains." End quote. Well, those are some really nice sentiments to share about a murderer. The DSA is one thing, but this group, the Chicago Teachers Union, is responsible for educating your children. And they think it's important to recognize the honor, life, and legacy of a killer. By the way, lest you think the Chicago Teachers Union simply tries to find nice things to say whenever anybody famous dies, there was no statement from this organization on the death of Charlie Kirk. But I guess Kirk expressed ideas the teachers' unions disagreed with, which is a disqualifying offense, unlike, murder. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty interested in school choice right now. Other individuals who memorialize Assata Shakur's death include Democratic Representatives Ayanna Pressley and Summer Lee, of course. Here's the big picture. In the past several weeks, individuals with demonstrably left-wing motivations have committed appalling crimes on the basis of those beliefs. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, the shooting of the ICE detention facility in Dallas. In response, conservatives are expressing consternation that leftists do not decry violence more vocally, whereas many progressives are saying, well, of course we don't support violence. You're the ones who support violence. In this regard, Assata Shakur is a good test. No one who says, I oppose political violence, should be believed if they also tweet, rest in power, Assata Shakur. Shakur did not want to reform the system through nonviolent resistance. She wanted to kill people who stood in her way and also commit a bunch of random violence and robberies in the process. Cuba harbored her because the authoritarian Cuban government approved of the violence and mayhem she caused in the U.S. Trust me, communist governments don't approve of violence and mayhem unless they are the ones doing it or unless it's aimed at the enemies of the state. The mainstream media wants us to believe that left-wing violence is not a serious problem. In fact, right-wing violence is worse or more prevalent, they say. Yet I don't see any Republican politicians, conservative interest groups, or MAGA media figures posting sympathetic tributes to Timothy McVeigh or to Dylan Roof. Assata Shakur, though, her poetry is apparently worthy of recitation, according to the teachers' unions and some Democratic figures. It's disgusting, frankly, and some more moderate Democrats do recognize that. Kudos to Democratic New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, who writes on X that the left's response to Assata Shakur's death is, quote, shameful and depraved. She was convicted of the murder of New Jersey State Trooper Werner Forster, who was executed in cold blood. There are so many worthy heroes to celebrate. She is not one of them. Amen. The left says they don't approve of political violence. But if they approve of Assata Shakur, worship her, in fact, then, well, I usually say make it make sense, but in this case, you just can't.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah.
You guys are really wrapped up in this. So, you don't have to agree with everything that Assata Shakur did or like anything about her to understand that
the killing part.
No, anything that she did, anything that she stood for, to understand that there's a broader, complicated issue tied to her and police going after the Black liberation movement. So that has to be a fact. So you understand history.
They went after them because they're criminals.
The trial wasn't clear cut. So if you know about the trial in full, you know that she maintained her innocence, that she says that her arms were up, she didn't shoot the cop, and that doctors testified that her testimony is consistent with how the wounds hit her. So we have that piece of it. Also, doctors supported her account and there's not enough evidence. Even the New York Times said there's no actual thing tying her to the gunshot or the bullet, no fingerprints evidence. This is all based on hearsay. And New Jersey has a law specifically that if you are in the vicinity or around somebody who does kill a cop at that time, then it's called the accomplice liability, that you're going to jail. And so she's facing life sentence when her hands were reportedly up. Now, out of 10 indictments, because you mentioned that she's also been they've accused her of multiple things, 9 out of 10 of them never stuck. And so in the 1970s, this was prevalent that you try to take people who were of the Black liberation movement or the Black Panthers and tie things to them. Not making this up. Look at Huey P. Newton, who started the Black Panther Party, accused of things and then acquitted after that. She was acquitted, dismissed, or had hung juries in all 9, except for this one instance where they pulled her over for a tail light, saying that she was going after the cops after that, started shooting. She says they shot first, her hands were up, and so now here we have it, and she fled to Cuba. Now, I want to give you a history lesson, because if you know about the 1970s, we were barely a decade after the Civil Rights Act, meaning Black people barely had rights, right? That's what the Civil Rights was for. They had to fight for freedom from oppression and slavery, and the way people behaved still in that fashion, even though there was a free America. So in the 60s, MLK and everybody was fighting for these things. And so Assata was around during that time, and they were protesting harassment, outright violence, and they didn't want to sit back and just say, oh, let's peacefully protest like MLK, even though MLK was being surveilled by the FBI as well.
Protest by robbing banks?
But she's not convicted of any of that stuff. So you're just naming things.
She was part of a criminal gang.
The FBI, wait, let me talk for 9 minutes. Please let me talk. So the FBI had a COINTEL program, which was an illegal campaign designed specifically to neutralize Black people that stood up, Black leaders, anti-war activists. This was a criminal program that was illegal through infiltration. The FBI was in the room when Malcolm X was killed, didn't do anything, allowed it to happen. There were informants undercover. This is Black resistance movement, watching it happen. The FBI was around as they arrested.
Theorists.
No, this is proven fact. Like this movie.
This is like when right-wing people say, "Oh, they just walked into the Capitol and they didn't do anything wrong. They thought they allowed to be there."
So tell me about
This is your version of the.
Fred Hampton was drugged and shot 100 times by cops and in coordination with the FBI.
It's
not police misconduct. He's part of the Black Panther Party. He's part of the Black Panther Party and was shot and killed by our government, the FBI, and cops in coordination. And that's been proven by a criminal and civil lawsuit against them because of the way that Fred Hampton was killed. So if you are telling me that if you don't understand the history of this country and why in the 70s people would have a distrust of somebody getting pulled over for a taillight, and you saying that all of a sudden she shot at you when she has wounds inconsistent with what the account from the police are saying, then you are foolish and don't understand our country's
sure
history.
there are
so the fact that I think that you just don't understand our country's history.
In pursuit of this organization that I would disagree with. I am not some apologist for everything the police do.
Obviously you are, because you're telling me that this woman just killed somebody, but everything about that trial was inconsistent, and there was a concerted effort to go after people of color that were part of these resistance
I don't think she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think she was part of a violent, radical organization.
That's not proven, though. That's your perspective. That's your perspective.
Well, I mean, it is.
And many people celebrate her legacy because she represents the survival of a system that was intentionally oppressing black people. And so when she escaped and people never thought she did it in the first place, they're saying, okay, Cuba provided some exile for her and some refuge for her, for somebody who was just standing up trying to liberate black people, and that was her entire mission.
She was just trying to stand up and liberate
she didn't shoot
black
the cop.
people?
If they're saying that there's no proof going consistent with what you're saying,
she was convicted.
I don't think they're supposed to automatically trust the cops in the 70s. You're asking black people for a lot who just got their rights finalized 10 years before that. Okay. So if you were a person of color that was constantly oppressed, beaten up for drinking out of the wrong water fountain, did not have the proper rights, and then people start to create a movement to say, stand up for yourselves. That's called the liberation.
But they weren't standing up for themselves. They were robbing people.
No, that's not proven. You said 9 out of 10 of those cases that were put up against her have dropped, hung juries, or failed, or she was acquitted. So this is incorrect. If we're going based off the law, your law failed 9 times.
She was part of a group that was engaged in that activity. She was not convicted of being the perpetrator of every single one of those crimes. No, she was convicted of the murder.
Okay, Robby, if you were getting beat and whooped and slavery was in your history and people were constantly attacking you so much they had to put laws through Congress, I think 72 hours and 72 different leaders at the time, I believe, were saying they're against in Congress for black people to have civil rights. Okay, that was the time that they lived in. So
I don't want to hear left-wing people say we don't support violence. Then clearly left-wing people do endorse political violence.
You must support violence if you think that it's okay for black people to be treated that way. She was standing up in her own way to say, I don't go for this. And so that's why people celebrate her legacy.
Violence.
My point is that that's what
I support leaders within the black community, like Martin Luther King,
do you understand what the Black Panthers were?
Nonviolent
Do you understand
resistance.
what the Black Panthers were? They were giving food to communities in Harlem, serving out children food and helping communities, teaching educational programs, community programs. They put in place
they were mobsters.
For the sake. No, that's not true. They were put in place to uplift the community in a different way, in a different route than MLK. And if you don't understand the history of this country, then obviously you, Kash Patel, and everyone else who wants to be simple-minded about this and act like her legacy can be brought down to a simple cop killer is just, you're trying to play dumb. Or you should read a history book and understand what time it was in the 70s and why everything that the cops say does not hold merit.
Now you're making excuses for
I'm not making
violence
an excuse. No, that's not
and
violence.
Murder and robbery.
You're making excuses for inconsistent damages on this woman's body that show her arms were up by doctors and telling me I should just believe the cops. When in fact, before there were cameras, we know that cops have done many things. And in fact, when we saw Fred Hampton killed, we understand that cops have done many things.
They robbed a bank to get the money to break her out of prison. Like the criminal associations of these people, it's just so obvious. And I don't understand the excuse making.
If somebody did not commit a crime and believe they did not commit a crime and the cops were actively after Black Panther.
If this was any other group and you didn't agree with them ideologically, you would, again, if it was the January 6th,
there's no other group.
You would easily say lock them up for their criminal behavior.
Unfortunately, and for your perspective, there's no other group in our country that was demoralized and dehumanized for decades and decades and decades and fought for their rights and finally came up with one plan to specifically try to create an equal society, which is where we're in right now. So you're equating something that can never equate, because Black people were slaves in this country and then moved on to try to fight for civil rights. And then after that, there's still people to this day that are still racist that we can agree upon, that are still trying to oppress and bring us back. And so the Black liberation movement was significant, and so that people said they're not going to stand for it and they're going to put their foot down and figure out ways to move forward. And there was an active, concerted effort by the FBI and other government entities and cops to bring those people back into their place that they thought they needed to be in. And so that's where we are. And Assata Shakur was part of that resistance movement.
And you think that was tactically useful or persuasive in helping get people more civil rights?
Do I think it was tactically useful or persuasive for the cops to pull over for a tail light because they wanted to get this lady for something? I don't think neither is tactically useful. Do I think it's tactically useful that we sit in this country and pretend like slavery doesn't affect us all and don't want to acknowledge it? Have a president right now who doesn't want to actually acknowledge that slavery was as bad as it was. He wants to celebrate the 250th anniversary of this country.
You don't want to acknowledge
and he wants
that
to
like murdering a cop is as bad as it was.
But I don't acknowledge that is the whole story. Doctors don't acknowledge. Forensic evidence doesn't acknowledge it. That's what I'm telling you. So there's people that actually just want to acknowledge the facts and understand the time period of the 70s and why that would be problematic without full proof.
All right.
Up next, Trump sending National Guard troops to yet another city, how Portland leaders are residents and responding. We'll be right back. First, we're just going to take this plastic off of this bowl really quick. Hold on, guys. We got to get our set in order. Hold on. Okay, shower cap going.
I thought maybe it was like a Halloween thing, like it was a spider web.
We're just going to get our set in order. We got you guys covered. So
a very spooktacular episode of Rising. Go ahead.
So first it was D.C., then Memphis and Chicago. Now with National Guard troops patrolling the streets of the Windy City, Portland is drawing the attention of President Trump. And it looks like the next city that'll be targeted for federal takeover.
Trump posted to Truth Social over the weekend to make the announcement, writing, quote, "At the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I am also authorizing full force if necessary."
Now, following that post, Oregon leaders pushed back on the idea that Portland was a war-ravaged city, or even that any help was necessary. Here's Oregon Governor Tina Kotek.
I spoke with the president. I asked him not to send troops. I tried to understand his reasoning, and I told him we are taking care of it, that I have full faith and confidence in local law enforcement, and the folks here today, we do not need federal troops. And I said, we disagree, and he said, well, let's keep talking.
Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield has also sued the Trump administration to block the president from deploying the National Guard. Meantime, Portland residents and visitors seem to be more confused than anything about Trump's claims of violence. Take a listen.
Not war ravaged. There is not war anything here.
I don't know if they're looking at, they dislike the homeless, the unhoused populations, which we do have. I mean, we fully admit that there's a systemic problem here. But if that's what they're considering war ravaged, like, I don't know. Graffiti, street art, like all the things that make Portland what it is.
I've been here for 2.5 weeks, walking around by myself, feel totally safe day and night, and have had no issues at all.
Oregon Senator Ron Wyden also responded to Trump's announcement with this video on social media, writing, quote, "Taken just a few minutes ago outside the ICE facility in Portland, the Trump claims is under siege. My message to Donald Trump is this: we don't need you here. Stay the hell out of our city." But that does not sit well, obviously, with conservatives who were quick to respond with videos that showed less peaceful scenes at the facility. And conservative influencer and journalist Andy Ngo taking a step further, offering to personally show Senator Wyden where the unrest is. He wrote on X, "The riots happen mostly at night outside ICE. Antifa are sleeping during the day. Do you want to go undercover with my colleagues and live stream so you can have a more accurate understanding? Have your team message me, and I can certainly arrange that."
Now, according to the Hill's reporting, demonstrations at that Portland facility have occurred throughout the summer, but have remained largely peaceful since they peaked in early June. So far, there have been no fatalities. Okay, this is the thing again. Everything is not a national emergency, and Trump likes to use that term so that he can over and abuse his power. And I don't think that if local leaders do not want you in a city or state, that has to be valid, especially when the entire conservative stance, which I know Trump is anti everything traditionally conservative, but the entire conservative stance has always been to allow states to govern themselves and cities to govern themselves and every other thing. But when he wants to send the National Guard, he's sending it for any issue. It could be immigration, it could be crime. It's like, let states govern, provide them with the resources. He called this woman up and said, hey, we want to help your local leadership. She said, oh, I'm good right now. No, thanks. Oh, we'll keep talking. And then he makes a national announcement on, what is it, Truth Social, and says, oh, yeah, we're going there next. It's like condescending, disrespectful, and also just out of order for a Republican to do.
Remember when part of Portland was held hostage by Antifa? Remember the Chaz zone? There was like, that stood for something, the something zone. You don't remember the autonomous zone? They occupied part of the city, kicked out the police force, and purported that it was their own little kingdom. So, and local leaders were totally incompetent in dealing with that. So I have no faith.
How long was this?
That was years ago.
Ancient history. So we're talking about right now. The ICE facility is not under siege.
I'm saying why I don't trust local leaders to deal with problems. Maybe the ICE facility is not under siege. Maybe it's the result of perfectly fine protesting.
No violence has occurred.
No fatalities have occurred, is what we read.
Largely peaceful is what we read.
I was going to say I don't love the idea. Again, Trump said war ravaged. Pete Hegseth is now the Secretary of War. I don't like the idea of considering domestic crime to be an issue of war, because war is against an external threat. And I think we can give the federal government too much authority when we start using war-like rhetoric with respect to the American people themselves. So I don't agree with the message, and I wouldn't waste federal troops in a city or a state that wants absolutely nothing to do with them. But that is not a vote of confidence in the leadership of Portland or the government of Portland or the people that are like, oh yeah, we just have tons of vagrancy and homelessness and graffiti and we love it. Okay, if you really love it, I guess it's not my problem then.
Well,
have fun with that.
There's certainly room for improvement, which is where you and I agree. I think that local law enforcement should name out how they could use federal help. If they need more police officers or they need help in certain areas,
they don't want police officers, fine.
They should list it out, and the president hopefully can help since he has the resources.
Then they don't
but
get
we're
help.
spending so much money sending people there in a fashion that nobody, even the citizens, didn't ask for. Like I read the AP article, it supports those sound bites we had. People are genuinely confused. Like, why would there be troops and boots on the ground?
They don't understand that you don't have to live like this.
They
can be nice. Cities can be nice. It's unbelievable. It's incredible. They can just be nice.
We're going to keep talking about this because he's going to do it more, I'm sure.
Up next, former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen stunned an MSNBC panel over comments that he made about the James Comey case. Don't go anywhere. Former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen stunned MSNBC hosts over the weekend when he said he believes the former FBI Director James Comey will be found guilty.
Now, a grand jury Thursday indicted Comey on the counts of alleged false statements and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. Here's what Cohen had to say.
Comey was actually very much involved in the Russia investigation in a very negative way. And chances are this DOJ has every single email, every text message, every communication. I believe likely he will be found guilty.
Oh, well, that's interesting because
I think he likely committed a crime.
Wait, what? What specifically?
I believe likely he committed a crime. I don't know what that crime is, but there are hundreds of thousands of documents, and government has each and every one of them. All they need to find is that one.
Cohen then said that he thinks Comey weaponized the justice system against Trump during his first term and that there will be evidence to show that based on the trove of documents.
Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said he has no faith in Trump's judicial system. Let's take a listen.
I have no faith in Donald Trump's judicial system. He has turned this judicial system to be his own political fighter, do what he wants politically, so that he tells them to go after people he doesn't like. He tells them to exonerate people that he likes. So many people are getting pardoned and this and that. He has turned this Justice Department into his own political watchdog.
So Michael Cohen shocked them over there on MSNBC.
Nobody knew what to say.
Molly Jong-Fast she was agog. But he knows something the rest of them don't, because he has been prosecuted. He has been through the legal system. And I always say this, and it makes people uncomfortable, but the fact is, he's right. He has firsthand information, which is when the government tries to go after you for something, they have every tool in their arsenal to do that. If you've made on-the-record statements to law enforcement or before Congress, pages and pages and pages of documents that they can go through, and they'll find something you said that was false, that they can prove was false. Maybe it was inadvertent. Maybe it was not particularly important, but they can find something. This is why I always advise people, do not talk to the police without an attorney, ever. Do not participate. They can get you. You will violate rules you don't even know exist. And so I'm not saying it's right or it's fair or it's just, but Michael Cohen's been through it and he knows it's not always right, fair, and just. If the government wants to get you, they can get you if you've, like an idiot, made statements to them without going through an attorney first.
I know you're just saying that just so that the world understands how jacked up that is. And maybe it's not correct, but that is ridiculous that they'll go through a needle in a haystack just so that President Trump could fulfill his political retribution goals.
Well, that's what they did to General Michael Flynn.
He went on the campaign.
That's what the Biden administration did.
So let's do it to Tom Homan. You said you didn't like it when they go undercover and try to catch Tom Homan.
They did it to all these people.
Let's just do it to Tom Homan. He's accepting bribes to work in the government. That should be against the law. Let's go after Tom Homan too. But no, you dismiss your friend's charges and have political retribution for people who you don't like.
I'm not anyone's
No,
charges.
not you. I'm saying President Trump. I'm speaking like if I was talking directly to him.
Yeah.
He lets his friends get a pass. He won't talk about Epstein and his friends, but he wants to get everybody else when it has to do with people who've slighted him, even though he went on the campaign trail and said, I'm not going to spend my time in office doing exactly what he's been doing. And from Letitia James to this, I mean, he's getting rid of people to put them, other people who are more loyalists and allies.
What he's doing to Letitia James is in response to what she did to him, which is to find any, again, doing this needle in a haystack, anything. Let's open up the entire criminal code. Let's find some rule he plausibly could have broken. There's campaign, there's the campaign finance thing. There's the misrepresenting the assets thing for the loan. Oh, yeah, we can get him on that.
So he's just a scammer. I mean, he's just getting people like that, and that's supposed to be okay in New York.
That's how they're getting Comey.
He's doing business like that in New York.
They're getting Comey on this type of thing.
Okay, so this is just his latest foe that he's going after, and I think.
And they're going to get Adam Schiff and Letitia James because the mortgage stuff.
So several people have said this is not a good idea, even Republicans. And the fact that he's still going forward.
Which Republicans?
I'm saying like people who he's worked with that he's fired because they won't prosecute James Comey in the same way, and then hired people who are more loyal. It's just like he's in this circle, this Ferris wheel of just trying to find somebody who will move forward with charges.
Democrats are not going to stand down and pursuing charges when they have power, pursuing charges and trying to convict Republicans. So Republicans.
Well, he can try to be the bigger person now. You know, he's so embarrassed by how Biden behaved. He was such a victim on the campaign trail and always targeted. He literally had the entire victimhood campaign of 2024. And now to do the same thing. We tried to remove you
as president. We tried to put you in jail. We tried to disqualify you from being on the ballot. And now we would really like you to be the bigger person and not use any of the tools of the state to pursue.
Yeah, because a lot of people who are part of the MAGA base hate the political fray. Most Americans don't like that Congress and everybody just fighting back and forth and not actually getting things done. So President Trump, as the representation of all these people that's going to make America great again, is this great? No, this is trash. Nobody wants to see you just going after. He talks about Biden.
No one. That's what the MAGA base wants.
He talks about Biden every single day. He talks about, or every chance he can, he put an auto pen photograph up last week. This is embarrassing. Do actual things that move the country forward. The economy is still not great. Most people feel as equally as uncomfortable as it did last year. Groceries are still expensive.
Just pivot to the economy.
No, I'm not just pivoting. I'm saying there are other things he should focus on.
Epstein.
He's sending National Guard in non-emergency situations. There you go. Take out the non and just put emergency with
emergency
quotes.
Economy, Epstein.
Yeah, it's like, come on. There's so much on your table and your plate right now. You're going after just your political foes, and there's other ways that you could actually fulfill the promises that you made on the campaign trail. That's a relevant statement. It's not just a rebuttal to say you do this, you do this. He campaigned against people doing exactly what he's doing. Just to do it back shows the pettiness of the person in the highest office.
When President Gavin Newsom in 4 years or whatever pursues...
He's not going to do it.
What?
He's not going to do it. He's not going to do that.
No Republicans will be...
I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's going to move forward and lead the country. And I don't know that he's even going to win the presidency.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
well, that'll be great.
Your favorite country is that we ping pong this pettiness for decades to come, so that our children, my daughter, can live in a world that she knew was the top tier petty that went back and forth between Democrats and Republicans trying to get each other locked up, and that's what our government did best. They're about to shut down tomorrow. And this is what they did best.
Shut down the FBI and most of the Justice Department and all of the Health Department and all of the Department of Education and the CIA and the Defense Department. I would cut in half. Your beef is not with me.
We have these things in place to organize us as a country, give us some stability and some grounding to stand on. But if we get rid of all that stuff and just allow Trump to lead, that to me is even more scary than having the Department of X, Y, Z and everything that you named in place. I think that would be a scarier situation.
Pick your poison, my friend.
I certainly wouldn't pick that one. I certainly would not pick that one. Next on Rising, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, is she breaking away from Trump and MAGA? I'll discuss that next in my lens. Stick around.
All right, Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
We're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. So MTG has spent years building her brand as one of Donald Trump's loudest allies. But lately, she's breaking away from him, from MAGA and from the Republican Party itself. Now, let me be clear. I don't agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on much of anything. This is the same Congresswoman who built her career trafficking in conspiracy theories and hate. But here's the thing. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Take her recent fights with the Trump world, when the former president's team threatened her over supporting a bill to release the Epstein files. Green didn't blink. Instead, she told the New York Times recently in an interview that her response to the White House is, quote, "You didn't get me elected. I do not work for you. I work for my district." That's not the voice of someone content to play water carrier for Trump. And it doesn't stop there. She's blasted Trump for bombing Iran's nuclear facilities, flipping on Ukraine, and even called what's happening in Gaza a, quote, genocide. Language you're more likely to hear from a progressive Democrat than a MAGA Republican. She's also taken shots at AI expansion, defense and aid to Israel, and the same GOP good old boys club she says are trying to sideline her. Now, these aren't small cracks. They're full-on breaks with Trump's agenda and with the party line. Of course, Green isn't suddenly becoming a centrist hero. She's still the self-described Christian nationalist who pushed QAnon, but shifts are real. They raise the question, why now? Well, here's some context. Green is up for re-election in November 2026. And if you look at the numbers, Trump's policies are not the winning lottery ticket they once were to some people. She knows that. The cost of living is up, healthcare, energy bills. Those are all issues that voters actually care about. And Green is savvy enough to realize that clinging to Trump's greatest hits isn't going to cut it in a midterm year where Republicans need more than culture wars. They need more than headlines. She's positioning herself as a somewhat of an independent, unbought, and unpredictable, which, let's be real, is a convenient rebrand when you're staring down a tough midterm cycle. So what's the bottom line? Marjorie Taylor Greene is staking out her own lane, even if it means burning bridges with Trump and the Republican establishment. I don't trust her motives, but I can spot a political calculation when I see one. And sometimes, even when the messenger is a broken clock, the message deserves attention. Because if MTG is breaking from MAGA, that tells us something bigger. The Trump machine isn't as ironclad as it once seemed. Now, whether she's doing it out of conviction or pure self-preservation, only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, the party that once treated Trump's word as gospel is finally starting to question the sermon.
I think I disagree, though, with your analysis. I don't think she's breaking away from MAGA necessarily. She is dissenting from Trump. It's certainly not, in my view, for political convenience. It is much politically easier to, yes, sir, Mr. Trump, everything. I think she is a person of principles. You may disagree with a lot of her principles, but in areas where she thinks the Trump administration has gone awry from the principles she ran on, like Thomas Massie, she is willing to criticize him politely. She's not, turning on Trump as a human being. But she disagrees with some of the foreign policy on Iran.
Well, she told the New York Times they're trying to sideline her.
She disagrees with the Epstein thing.
So she's being more aggressive in her tone. This is a recent New York Times interview, and she's like, the good old boys club. I think that's direct call out to President Trump. So it's more than just, I disagree with you about Epstein. I think you're in the wrong.
Well, I think very much frustrated, but it's from sincere conviction on her part. I mean, we've interviewed her on, I guess you weren't, it was Nat'l the day that she did come on Rising, maybe like 2 months ago or something.
Okay.
And we had a great conversation with her, and Nat'l just like you, disagrees with her and pressed her on a tweet she had that he thought was offensive, which was perfectly good question to pose to her, but she really didn't like the Iran decision and some others. So I respect that she's an independent thinker like Massie, and I don't think it's political calculation. I think
this is
making her reelection harder. To going against Trump makes it harder in a primary because the voters aren't paying attention to the nuances of it, which is not a knock on them. They have lives. They got to do their jobs. Paying as much attention to politics as we do is because we're paid to do it. It is our job. People trying to keep up with the details of policy to the extent we do, it's insane to ask them to do it in their free time when they're working people. So they just see, she's turned on Trump. I like her less. Maybe I'm not going to show up and vote for her. It's a bad calculation. It's one you have to do if you really disagree with Trump and you're principled about it, the way, Rand Paul has picked some of these fights and others.
I just think
doesn't make their life easier, trust me.
Well, I think if she's specifically told the New York Times after President Trump and his team said that anybody who basically signs on with Massie's push forward to release more details about the Epstein files, he used some wording trying to deter people from doing it in the Republican Party. And she was like, you don't run me, basically, to the New York Times. My constituents do. So she's saying I'm representing the people that are on the ground. So she knows that Trump's policies, and that's just one example, I named the rest in my lens, are against what the people of her city feel? And she's like, how can I go home to the state of Georgia and say all these things that I've done, but you guys are telling me that food is too expensive, the economy is still not great, and our president is over here delaying information that you guys are asking for about the Epstein files. Even if her base was MAGA and highly interested in it, they want more information, release the Treasury documents, and not to even go into that deep dive of Epstein, but there's multiple things that she's breaking with the party on. So it's almost like, what is the party? Because as I read out these things, calling the genocide in Gaza, these are all have been progressive stance. I mean, AOC has been saying these things for 2 years now. So the fact that she's aligned with AOC, it's kind of like maybe that's a political tool that we're seeing used in the same way that we see the rise of Mamdani in New York, is because people actually want to hear a different policy that is the exact opposite of President Trump and want him to do things totally opposite than he's doing, which is why I always go back to the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of his current presidency. I mean, we are in September and people don't feel much of a change, and he's, not done anything too significant to people besides bring costs up.
I also saw her tweet yesterday. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I am not suicidal. I'm one of the happiest, healthiest people you will meet. I have full faith in God and Jesus Christ. With that said, if something happens to me, I ask you all to find out which foreign government or powerful people would take heinous actions to stop the information from coming out. The people understand what I'm saying. And Ted Cruz quote tweeted it and said, why do crazy people keep thinking the Jews are trying to kill them? So they're having some disagreements there.
So now she's just going to be called crazy and move.
She's saying that the foreign government, I guess Ted Cruz took that to be Israel, is trying to silence her. I do think I'm very critical of what the Israeli government is doing. I do think it can be taken too far in people thinking that, everyone trying to get me is Israel. There are serious people who think Israel killed Charlie Kirk, which is a ludicrous idea to me. That said, I am critical of Israel, and they do wield influence over our government, or they try it through AIPAC and others try to influence people. So it's just messy and complicated. But when you start saying, I'm not suicidal, someone's trying to kill me, I think you do sound like a crazy person.
She's scared for her life and also asking for the Epstein file. And then there's also a conspiracy theory that perhaps Epstein, or maybe not conspiracy, wrong word. There's also a theory that Epstein may or may not have been working with a foreign government, which people may or may not consider to be Israel. So that's like an endless conversation about this.
Right. Next up, New York City Mayor Eric Adams is ending his bid for re-election. When we come back, we'll talk about his legacy as mayor and what that means for those still in the race. Stay with us.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced Sunday that he is ending his campaign for re-election. The mayor made the announcement in a video on social media. He says his main reason for dropping out is a lack of funding. Take a look.
And yet, despite all we've achieved, I cannot continue my re-election campaign. The constant media speculation about my future and the campaign finance board's decision to withhold millions of dollars have undermined my ability to raise the funds needed for a serious campaign.
Adams went on to caution New Yorkers against what he says is a rise in divisiveness and political violence.
Major change is welcome and necessary, but beware of those who claim the answer to destroy the very system we built together over generations. That is not change, that is chaos. Instead, I urge New Yorkers to choose leaders not by what they promise, but by what they have delivered.
Adams was elected mayor in 2021, succeeding Bill de Blasio. In his time as mayor, much of his focus went toward lowering crime and rebuilding the city's economy after it was disrupted by the COVID pandemic. But his administration also faced heavy allegations of corruption. Last year, he was indicted on charges of bribery and fraud, and his approval ratings plummeted.
Now, Adams did not explicitly throw his support behind any of the other remaining mayoral candidates. Polls continue to show Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani with a big lead over former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now, Mamdani responded to Adams' decision in an interview, saying he doesn't think this will have much of an impact on the race. Cuomo posted his own response on X, writing, quote, "The choice Eric Adams made today was not an easy one, but I believe he is sincere in putting the well-being of New York City ahead of personal ambition. We face destructive extremist forces that would devastate our city through incompetence or ignorance, but it's not too late to stop them."
So the politics of this is that Eric Adams getting out does help Andrew Cuomo. They're competing for the more moderate slice of the electorate. Eric Adams is the incumbent mayor, so this is kind of a big deal that he just is deciding no longer to run for re-election, although he says he was just so hamstrung by the legal issues he's facing. This is going to help Cuomo a little bit. Now, Zohran Mamdani is very far ahead, so I don't think it fundamentally alters the shape of the race. Mamdani is still, he was before almost virtually certain to win. He's now, I think, just very likely to win. But we could get some polls indicating something else. If this helps Cuomo get some momentum, then maybe it'll be a different story. But we have to wait to see that.
I think I agree with Mamdani that this announcement was kind of insignificant. Eric Adams' approval rating has plummeted, like we said as in the read-in, so low because of his antics repeatedly, that this was kind of like a clown show between a former governor that was convicted of all this misconduct, sexual misconduct, allegedly.
Well, wasn't convicted of sex.
I mean, not convicted, accused of, sexual misconduct, but then also accused of all those incidents at the nursing home during the pandemic. So he's talking about poor leadership, and Eric Adams, if he is essentially going to throw his support behind Cuomo, saying, look at the history of how they ran the state. I think that's not a good
I would have preferred Cuomo drop out and throw his support behind Eric Adams personally.
That's kind of random. And also, he's an incumbent. People, I don't know who dislikes who more. And also, people are so exhausted and extremely priced out of even living in New York that Mamdani even offering what to you may feel like unrealistic solutions sounds better than no solution, or sounds better than them saying, oh, good old boys club. Oh, Cuomo and Trump talk often. Obviously, they think that. Cuomo and Eric Adams and Trump must talk often. I mean, he helped that man get out of trouble. So it's kind of like, well, who's on our side? These seem like Trump's friends, and then Mamdani.
I've said many times that I don't really have a dog in this race because I despise Andrew Cuomo because of the COVID leadership, and Zohran Mamdani, I disagree with his ideas, but he seems like a nice person. But the left has been far more irritating to me lately. And on a serious note, the whole left-wing violence thing from socialist-type people. He is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, Zohran. So I'm wavering in my desire to remain neutral in this contest because as much as I really despise Andrew Cuomo, he's not a socialist. So I don't know. I'm wavering.
We're going to keep talking about this, especially as Election Day comes up.
Next up, conservatives are blasting the NFL over who they chose to be the Super Bowl halftime performer. We'll be right back after this. Conservatives Benny Johnson and Robby Starbuck are blasting the NFL for choosing Puerto Rican artist Bad Bunny to headline the 2026 Super Bowl.
Now, the Super Bowl will take place at Levi's Stadium in San Francisco. Bad Bunny said in a statement, quote, "What I'm feeling goes beyond myself. It's for those who came before me and ran countless yards so I could come in and score a touchdown. This is for my people, my culture, and our history."
Some conservatives are not happy about this announcement. Starbuck posted on X, Roger Goodell and the NFL just decided to make the Super Bowl political by picking Bad Bunny as the 2026 Super Bowl music act. The guy literally says he isn't touring the U.S. because of Trump's ICE raids. Just released a video mocking President Trump. Also, most of his songs aren't even in English. This is not a pick designed to unite football fans or let people just enjoy the show. It was a pick designed to divide fans, and no doubt Bad Bunny will find some way to push a woke message. Benny Johnson also weighed in, writing, the NFL self-destructing year after year. Democrats, of course, took the opportunity to make fun of MAGA. Gavin Newsom's press account responded to Johnson on X, writing, "Benny, calm down. We all know you listen to Bad Bunny, LOL." And Democratic personality Harry Sisson wrote, "MAGA's now furious over Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl. Bunch of snowflakes." So, I
want to give a round of applause to the choices being made for Super Bowl. This is a great selection. I know you love Bad Bunny as well.
I have no idea who this is. I have never heard of this person in my life.
That's embarrassing for you, Robby. I'm really sorry about that. You don't know who Bad Bunny is?
I don't.
He breaks all the records.
Is that Bad Bunny?
Yes,
is that
that's
who's
Bad
on
Bunny.
screen?
And earlier when I asked you if you know who Bad Bunny, you said like the evil twin of Bugs Bunny. And that's terrible because he breaks records, sells out millions. People flew all the way to Puerto Rico to see him because he did a residency in his home country. Because, yes, he took a political stance, and so is Jay-Z. You have to remember, Jay-Z joined the NFL and decided to work alongside them to produce all of the music content for halftime.
I like Jay-Z's music because I know who he is.
Wait, why Jay-Z did that is because he was taking a stand and figuring out how to use his own voice and his own skills to send messages, largely seen in that way anyway, to the NFL, who wasn't said that they seemed like they had a problem with people of color after the kneeling that happened by Colin Kaepernick. So Jay-Z took a stance, and by doing stuff like this, he's continuing to take a stance. People were in the black community and Latino community were against the fact that Jay-Z's working with the NFL, but to put Bad Bunny, who actively has said, I'm not going to do concerts in the U.S. because of what ICE is doing to people who look like me.
Yeah, he changed his mind on that real fast, didn't he?
Yeah, this is the one he'll do. And I'm sure he is going to have a woke message, and I'll be right in the audience like this. I don't watch football, but I'll be watching Super Bowl. I'm so excited for it.
Nobody's going to be watching football.
Yeah, they will. Their ratings are nice and high.
Woke.
It's always a threat about somebody's not going to watch.
The audience
they're going to watch.
For the Super Bowl is, I mean, it's not boomers necessarily. A lot of people watch a lot of Americans watch the Super Bowl, but I think it's a little bit older than the target demographic for this Bad Bunny character. I don't think
people of all I've seen aunties fanning themselves off when Bad Bunny comes to the room. I've interviewed Bad Bunny on
aunties
The View.
Do not watch the Super Bowl.
Yes, they do. All the women who interviewed on The View were freaking out. There was a
the women on The View were happy.
I was on the panel that day interviewing Bad Bunny. There was a line of people.
You interviewed him?
Yes, there's a line of people that were literally waiting outside. And I've been on the panel multiple times. Nobody was ever waiting for any celeb. The way that it was crowded outside of their old studio was insane. This man has a fan base, and you need to get part of it. Just get on board, become the fan base, because he's really that good. And it doesn't matter if his music is in Spanish. The fact that I can recite line for line, okay, means that it doesn't matter. It's like Gangnam Style. Remember that song? Gangnam Style.
That song I've heard.
My point.
If they got Psy to do the Super Bowl, everybody would love it. It'd be great.
What is he saying, though? What's Gangnam Style mean? You don't know, but you love it. You were just doing this?
No, it has to do with the...
No, don't just make something up. The point is Bad Bunny's songs are equally as good, and all of them pretty much do as well as that one Psy song. He deserves
I know a lot more about K-pop than you do, trust me.
Do you? I don't know that much about K-pop, besides that new Netflix movie.
I'm learning. Oh, yeah, it was pretty good.
Me and kids were watching together.
So you just proposed, actually, I would love if the Gangnam Style did the Super Bowl. That would be amazing. That would be so cool, because we know what that is.
We agree.
If it was something we know what it is, it'd be good. Look, I hope he does a good job. I have nothing against it. I'm not saying I dislike his music. I literally have not, I couldn't name it. Maybe I've heard it in the background, I just don't know.
You need to put it on your ride home, because you're out of touch, or you're acting like a boomer. So the young kids that are watching this, the ones that are younger than you,
I just want music from the 90s and early aughts.
The base that you're trying to rally to become future libertarians, future Robbys that are in college right now are going to be so ashamed.
Can like Fall Out Boy do it, or Green Day, or like My Chemical Romance, or somebody like that. That's who I'd want.
Historical acts.
The big
historical
names
acts
from the 90s and aughts.
Yeah, we're in the 2025s. I'm gonna need you to.
Let's get Gwen Stefani to do it. Let's bring back No Doubt. Wouldn't that be a great halftime show?
Guys.
That's my advice. All right, that does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel so you don't miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you can get your podcast fix. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Just getting started this week. Bye-bye.
Spicy Monday.